JX has another question. Do you not believe that men are poly by nature and women monogamous by their nature? It's not what I believe, it's factual. Like in terms of naturally, in a natural environment, and just the fact of, there's so much scientific evidence to support it, like a man is supposed to multiply, yeah? The man has so much sperm and a man can be fertile and continue, to procreate far, far longer than a woman can. They have a certain amount of eggs and at a certain point, it dries out. And just by nature, like it's impossible for one woman to carry multiple children for different men at the same time. I'm not talking about different times, at the same time. By nature, it's possible for a man to have several children by different women at the same time. But I'm not saying this, don't misquote me, right? We're not saying to be frivolous and go out there and be promiscuous and have no control, because we're living in a day and time where it's dangerous because of many diseases and so forth and so forth. But yes, by natural nature, I've heard very intelligent women break this down, and when you start to look at the population and look at the ratio of men to women, there is a shortage. And this is something that when you deal with it from an intelligent point of view and not just like an emotional point of view or just a very kind of like basic mentality point of view, you have to think about this, especially as women. I pose this question to many women in discussing this topic on many occasions. And I'll be like, if, let's say, there were 10 men totally to 100 women in a society on the planet, would you as a woman be so selfish as to say, okay, there's 10 women that can have one of the men each, but then there's going to be another 90 women that haven't got no one? What do you suggest for them? If you as a sister love them and care about them and you guys want to grow and build, what do you suggest? Of course, there are going to be women who are acting from an emotional point of view, from an attachment point of view, and say, no, I'm not sharing my man, I just want my man to me. And you're like, what about your sister? They're like, none of my business. But you know what's going to happen? It's inevitable that the men are going to sneak around because the other women are still going to desire and want to be with someone. So wouldn't it be more practical and it's dangerous because not knowing if someone's been promiscuous can cause even more problems within the family unit. So it's better when it's done in a controlled environment and everybody knows. This is what's happening in the society today, where people will lie and cheat and sneak around, and it's all based on lies, as opposed to if you sat down and agreed and worked together to make sure that the women, I guess you could say an argument like, well, the 10 women could have children and multiply and then eventually provide. But think about the age group. How long would it take for each of those children to be of age comparing to the people that are already there? So yeah, naturally, by natural nature, I mean, there's so many reasons that, point to that. But at the end of the day, you have to also base it on the culture and the law of the land in where you live. So this is why having your own culture, I mean, this is something that most Eastern cultures and cultures that come from prior to like mainly the European and the Asians, who, they restricted it because really it was down to the fertility rate, and they don't multiply as, say, the Africans or, you know, people that are able to have a higher level of fertility rate. So people like that die out eventually. So really, yeah, we have to use logic and common sense and right knowledge when we address that topic. Of course, there are always going to be people that are going to be like, no, they're against it. But you have to think, where does that come from? Because even if we went biblically, right, for the religious people, most of the prominent people had more than one wife. We can talk about Solomon, we can talk about Abraham. Abraham had what? Hera, Sarah, Keturah. We can talk about David, even Jesus. But again, I know these are touchy subjects for people, but if the Bible and the Quran promotes having 4 wives, obviously people abuse it. Then you had people that had wives and concubines, you know, and some people obviously abuse it, but really that's something that throughout the scriptures, throughout nature, is something that is definitely natural, all right, by nature. All right, let's keep going.